Welcome back. Today, we are putting on our detective hats and diving into a really fascinating clinical puzzle. We're going to learn how to decode the signs, both the obvious and the super subtle, that point to different kinds of facial fractures. All right, let's get into it.
So here is our puzzle for today. Imagine you're looking at a patient and you see these 4 signs. Pupils that are different sizes, a bite that's out of whack, an eye that won't move right, and a good old-fashioned nosebleed. Now, 3 of these are classic clues for a facial fracture, but one of them, is an imposter. It points to something totally different. Which one do you think it is?
Okay, so the very first step in solving any good mystery is to spot the red herring. We need to find that one clue that, while definitely serious, just doesn't quite belong with the others. And there you have it, the outlier. The one that doesn't fit is asymmetric pupils. But just knowing the answer isn't enough. The really important question, the one that actually matters, is why. Why is this a misleading clue when we're talking about a broken bone in the face?
This is where it gets really important. See, asymmetric pupils are a huge warning sign, for sure, but they aren't pointing to a broken facial bone. They're actually pointing to something much deeper, inside the skull itself, a possible traumatic brain injury, or TBI, and that dangerous pressure building up inside. So while you might see them both on the same patient after a trauma, the fracture isn't causing the unequal pupils.
All right, so we've identified our imposter clue and set it aside. Now let's get back to basics and look at the signs that are common ground, the universal clues you'd expect to find with pretty much any kind of facial fracture.
These are your foundational clues right here. Swelling and bruising, what doctors call ecchymosis, are pretty obvious. But then you get crepitus. That's that awful grating feeling of bone rubbing on bone. And instability, where parts of the face that should be totally solid now have some gift to them. These 4 signs basically scream fracture, but the thing is, they don't tell you where the break is.
And this is where the real detective work kicks in. We're going to take those other clues from our original puzzle and see how each one acts like a specific key, unlocking the exact location of the injury.
So let's start with this one, dental malocclusion. It sounds complicated, but it's really just a fancy way of saying the teeth don't line up right anymore. If a patient tells you that their bite suddenly feels off, that is a massive top priority clue that points you directly to a fracture in the mandible, their jawbone. Next up, we've got epistaxis. Of course, you and I just call this a nosebleed. And it is, not surprisingly, one of the most common signs you'll see with a nasal fracture. It's a really strong indicator that those delicate little bones in the nose have been damaged.
Now this one is really interesting. If a patient can't move their eye properly, especially if they can't look up, that's a classic sign of what's called an orbital blowout fracture. What's happened is the floor of the eye socket has broken, and the tiny muscles that move the eyeball can literally get trapped in the break. So it's not a nerve problem, not at first. It's a purely mechanical problem. The muscle is physically stuck.
And to build on that, an orbital fracture often brings a few friends to the party, all thanks to nerve damage. Diplopia, or double vision, happens because the eyes just aren't moving together anymore. And that numbness you might find above the eyebrow or over the cheek, that happens because the nerves that provide sensation there run right through the area and get bruised or even cut by the broken bone.
Okay, so we have looked at all the evidence, we've thrown out the red herring, and we've connected each specific clue to its crime scene, so to speak. The case is pretty much closed, so let's just lock in the key connections that we've made today.
Here it is, boiled down to a simple roadmap. If you see that misaligned bite, you should be thinking jaw. If you see a nosebleed, you're looking at the nasal bone. And if that eye can't move the way it should, your focus is squarely on the eye socket, the orbit. It's a beautifully clear link from a specific sign to a specific location.
And really, that's the heart of the whole thing. The general signs, like bruising and swelling, they're like the first alarm bell. They tell you something is wrong. But it's those super specific signs, the bad bite, the eye that can't look up, that tell a clinician not just that there's a problem, but exactly where to find it. That's what turns a hunch into a diagnosis.
So, we've learned how to read the map of the injury, but that just brings up the next big question, right? Once you know exactly where the break is, how do you decide what to do about it? Well, that is a puzzle for another time. Thanks for joining this explainer,